Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo and hello everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. So happy you're here and joining us today. As you are listening to this, we are going to be just 2 weeks away from the National. I know you guys are probably so sick of me talking about the National, especially if you're not able to go or don't want to go or whatever. I get it. But today I think it's going to give you a little bit of insight, not just about the National, but maybe about any card show that you would go to. I'm talking today to my buddy Craig, and he and I have done business together for a number of years. We've gotten to know each other a lot better over the last year or so. In fact, he was on an episode this is episode number 77 of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. He was just on episode number 62. So not that long ago. He is by far the most popular guest I've ever had because the episode he was on, 62, has the most listens and views from between YouTube and podcast of any episode of Golden Age of Cardboard ever, and it's not even really close. So let me go ahead and bring him in, and we'll get into the conversation. Craig, how does that make you feel? You're number one, man.
That's great. That's exciting. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And it's not because of your looks, right?
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, Holly was on last time for a second, so maybe that helped.
Don't tell her because she will get the big. She'll be like, it's all because I was on there. She'll be like, I drove up viewership. Look, my anniversary was a couple weeks ago, and after 23 years of being married, I have long since realized how much I outkicked my coverage. Right. So I think we're both very blessed, right?
We are. I think I'm 27. Yeah, 27.
27. That's awesome. So, and what I want to talk to you about today, you're a dealer and have been for a long time. For those that may not have listened to episode 62 when you were on before, we want to tailor this towards the National, but really just kind of anything for people out there that might go to shows and into the mind of how a dealer thinks, and not in both a good way, you know, in terms of just understanding where the point of view that they're coming from, right? Mm-hmm. And we're all people, right? And we all want to be helpful, and you want to help us collectors get cards, because I always look at everything as from a collector's mindset. Like that's just how I think, because that's what I am.
Right.
You're a dealer. You've been dealing cards now for 30 plus years.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, on and off, doing shows since then. So of course, since I kind of retired from the corporate world, I've been doing more shows but yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the collector. I know I do the shows, but I'm a big collector too. So, you know, for me, whenever I'm setting up for a show or getting ready, I want to get every book, get my boxes, you know, and I always wish that everybody at the show would keep everything in order, but it doesn't always work that way. But
right.
You know, it makes life easier for the set builder and everybody to build everything in numerical order. The books in order. I like to have them full. So, you know, I want to, and I told you that on the last podcast, you know, for us to be able to fill somebody's set is, you know, this is the last card for my set and this is it. You know, it's always exciting. And that's the goal really, is to help the collector build their sets and find the cards that they really want, be it a complete set, or maybe it's a team set or a player run or whatever, you know, that's the goal.
Don't you think it helps you be a better dealer because you also think like a collector? Like you go, I want to give the experience to someone else that I would want if I came to a booth. Is that how you think?
Exactly. And you know, like today I've got my daughter Katie upstairs sorting cards right now. No, she just loves it. Not really, but you know, when I go through cards, like a lot of the stuff I have is raw. I'm like, man, these are really nice, and I'm putting them in the books or in the boxes. I'm like, as a collector, I'm like, I would like to buy these and put them in my set. So I mean, you know, my mindset of I'm kind of picky on condition. I like to have nice condition cards. I think helps me to be able to have nicer cards in my display at the shows. And I don't like to put a card in there that's got a wrinkle or a crease. I like to make sure that they're nice. And then whenever the collector comes to my booth or my tables, they're like, your cards are really looking, and I get that a lot, and that makes me feel good. That they think my cards look nice, and that's my goal. And I have the lower grade stuff too, and I'll have the off grade, and some people like that, and that's okay too. But I like to have something for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm your low grade. I don't need 8s and everything. I'll take 4s and 3s and nice looking 2s. You said something just now that I want to ask you about, because you said if they're nice enough, you'd buy them from yourself.
Well, I think it's that mindset we were talking about. So,
okay.
I like to go to card shows. I mean, I work on my sets and raw stuff, and I'll buy graded cards every now and then. But as I'm going through, my cards, maybe that I've got here that I'm sorting them, these are really nice. So in other words, if I was at a show, I'd be interested in buying these because they're sharp.
Yeah,
so I think it's just that mindset of what I like to look for. I want to be able to make that available at the shows, so.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So what number national would this be for you this year?
This will be number 3. This will be number 3 for me.
As a dealer.
Yes. As a
dealer. You've done.
I've been to 2 other nationals. So, of course, the last one that got canceled. When was that? Was supposed to be? Was that Atlantic City?
2020.
2020. Yeah. And then the 2 Chicagos that I've done. So then this one here in Atlantic City.
That's right, because we met in 19.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Right.
I met you in Holly. I bought several cards from you, including a 71 Topps Clemente. That's crazy that I remember that I bought that card from you.
That's a tough card right there.
Yeah.
Clemente,
and you had a beautiful 6 that, again, it's worth probably 3x what I paid for it, but that's what I paid, what it was worth it,
Right.
That's just the way the market's gone.
Yep.
Which, as a dealer, do you ever go, man, if I only had the stuff that I've already sold,
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. I'm trying to think what year that was, the Chicago show.
18.
18. I remember I had a PSA 9 Dr. J rookie. I think I sold for.
I'm sorry. It was 19. I lied. 19.
I have a hard time remembering dates, but I remember a PSA 9 Dr. J rookie I sold for maybe $1,500 or something at the time, or whatever it was worth. And you think about some of those cards. But I've got a lot of, you can't, I don't beat myself up over it because I've got my collection and I've got the cards that I'm happy with. So, the stuff I take to the shows are cards that I am okay with parting with.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I do remember cards that I've sold over the years and man, that one's really went up or whatever.
Right.
It comes and goes. I've bought a lot of cards and got in my collection that I've done, just like the Clemente, you said, the PSA 6 is probably 3 times now. I think, I wish I could keep everything, but you just can't. But there's some things that I've kept in my collection since I was in grade school, I guess. So,
well, number one rule of any business is never be mad at making a profit, right? Like never kick yourself when you make a profit. So that's, you can't change. If everything went down, you'd be like, man, you wouldn't go back and, it just is what it is. Right.
Right. You're exactly right.
So being a multi-year customer of yours and loving the way you do things, you've helped me complete raw sets. You've helped me add slabs to my collection of Hall of Famers and all kinds of different stuff. One thing I love about what you do and provide is a wide breadth of different things. It's not just one thing, which can be fine. Like there's nothing against that, but I like going to one place and being able to fill lots of collecting holes. Do you get that type of comments from other people as well?
I do, kind of that one-stop shopping, and that's what I hope to be able to accomplish whenever somebody comes to the tables. I like to do. I've got all the albums in the books of cards, and I've also got the boxes full of cards and card saver ones. And then, of course, I've got as many showcases. Usually I have one of the bigger spreads at most of the shows of the vintage, so I'll fill all the showcases, and those are all full. So I try to just kind of guide everybody through, if they're working on a certain set or certain year, try to make it as easy as possible, I guess, to where they can find the cards that they need. So, if they're looking for a certain year or certain grade or certain stars, I can just kind of point them in the right direction, pull a box or pull a book, and they usually have their numbers and can go through and fill their sets. So, yeah, I mean, I've got the football and a lot of vintage football too. That's not nearly as popular as the baseball, but there are football collectors out there, and I've got quite a bit of football that I bring along. So,
and you have a lot of repeat customers too. I've noticed, like guys that go, man, you got to go see Craig. Like that's honestly, when I go to a show that I know you're at, you're the first booth I want to go to. Like I want to go. All right, if I'm going to spend my budget, I want to do it with Craig. Like because I know I'm going to get a fair deal. I know that you just like dealing with people that you have a relationship with. It's just easier, right?
It is. It makes it nice. I've made Holly and I and Ryan, who helps me at the shows a lot of times, we made a lot of good friends and met a lot of great people. And, like I've said it before, if you treat people right and they feel like they got nice cards, they got what they wanted, and they got a fair price, they'll come back. So, and that's the whole idea. And
that's smart business too, right? I mean, that's incredibly wise business. The guys that are jerks and stuff, you're like, I wouldn't buy a card from you if you gave it to, you know what I mean? Like, thanks, but no thanks. You're no fun to deal with.
I've walked around tables before at shows, and you'll have dealers that just, they won't hardly say anything, or they just kind of, I don't know, but to me, it's about meeting people and striking up a conversation and, talking about baseball. I have people that I've sold cards to that still call, and we talk baseball or cards or, whatever. And I always take the time, and it's fun.
Yeah. You and I text each other like, oh, look what I found. Or, you'll be like, look at this collection. And I love that we do that. It's not me going, hey, Craig, do you have this or whatever? It's not always about business. It's just two guys that love the hobby and love talking about it whenever we can. So what do you think, like when, I guess as you're getting ready for the National in the next few weeks, your daughter's upstairs sorting cards, I'm sure to make inventory easier. What about, like, do you have guys, long-term customers? The reason I brought up, repeat customers, do you have guys that are sending you want lists to, hey, if you have these, go ahead and pull them, make me a stack that I can pick up and pay for at the National? Do you do that?
I mean, a lot of times I won't pull cards out, but I will make sure that if they're looking for a certain year, I can make sure that I've got that stuff available, or I'll double check and make sure that if I need to get some more from the back inventory into that year, I'll make sure that I've got it good and full form. Because it's, the vehicle that we drive is completely full. So I've kind of got a system of how I've got everything, in numerical order as far as the years and the books and then the boxes and the graded cards. And I've kind of got a system on how I got everything. So it's pretty, I've got a pretty good system, I think, as far as once I get to the show where I can find stuff. But I have customers a lot of times that will say, hey, I'm looking for this, or maybe it's something oddball. And sometimes I don't bring a lot of the later 70s stuff, commons, because there's just so much stuff to bring because I got so much of the other stuff. But I'll bring a set of them or something to break, or if somebody needs a lot of cards, I'll bring a set to the show.
You're pointing to something that I think is super critical as a dealer. I would think organization is so critical. I mean, we've all been to booths before at shows where it looks like chaos. Like they literally just dumped a bunch of crap out of a box into their showcases. And you're like, dude, there is no rhyme or reason to any of this.
Right.
Which really turns me off as a buyer. I'm telling, I go, I don't really want to sift through a bunch of crap. I want to get to the point because there's so many booths to see. I want to go, do they have what I'm looking for? Yes or no? If so, I'll make the time. If not, I'm going to move on. And those chaotic booths really just make me.
Yeah. It's, I mean,
for me, no, thanks. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think we had a little break up there.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, the organization part of it. I was just looking at some of my stuff today. I get to where you have so many cards, certain years, like in the 60s, I've got just thousands of cards of many of those years. For instance, I need to go to 3,500 count boxes or 5,000. I'm always trying to figure out an easier way to be able to get to my inventory, to be able to make sure that everything's filled up as far as the books and the boxes and everything. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty organized for the show, but here at home, as I buy, collections and add to, it's a lot of work because you've got to be able to go through everything that you bought, take a look at the condition, okay, then get everything in a holder, in a book, or in a box, and then priced, and then take that sort of into the inventory that I have to go to the shows. And so it's quite an undertaking to try to keep everything up. But I want to make sure that I'm on top of what I have, and I take everything that I can take to the shows for the customer. So.
But I would think that all that work that you talk about putting in pre-show leads to more sales at the show, because if somebody asks, you're not going, well, let me see if I have that. And the
Right.
collector's going, dude, don't waste my time. You will know right where to look for the,
Yes.
and be able to answer that question. If you don't have to know every card you have. That's impossible. But
Right.
you can say, you know what, if I do, it's going to be right here kind of thing. And I think that's critical to creating that good experience for the collector.
Yeah, the star cards, I have stacks of every year. So those are not really numerical order, because I think a lot of times people like to go through the star stacks.
Oh yeah.
But the commons, and some of the later years, like in the late 60s and in the 70s, I'll have like a big box just full of stars and commons all in numerical order. But most everything else is in numerical order for the set builder. And then the showcases, just the stacks of stars. I may have 4 or 5 of 6 of a lot of the stars in those years, where people could kind of look at the condition and kind of decide on which card they'd like to get.
I also notice in your showcases, you'll have all the 65s together, all the 60, you'll put it you'll group them by year, which, believe it or not, a lot of dealers don't. It's all random. And I know if I'm looking for like a 65, Sandy Koufax or something, I know to go to the 65. If it's not there, you don't have it, right? And so that also helps.
Yeah, I think my only disadvantage is sometimes I wish I had 25 showcases, and I could, instead of having a stack of cards and having it full of all these Hall of Famers, I can't display all of them. I try to put a few on top, but because, a lot of people that there's a lot of collectors that just something catches their eye and say, wow, I really like that card. It looks nice. And they'll buy it. Not, just random. There's a lot of people that just like to go look through cards and just buy something that catches their eye, So sometimes you wish you could display every single card, but that's not possible.
Well, that happened to me at your booth at one of the Dallas shows. I saw a red man with tab Stan Musial. Do you remember this story? Do you remember that?
Yep, I remember.
And it caught my eye, and that was not on my radar at all. It doesn't fit into anything that I do. I do love Stan Musial. Who doesn't, right? But and I didn't have any red man cards in my collection, and you had it, to me, I thought, very fairly priced. I knew I could probably squeeze a couple bucks off of it from you, but and I was like, I don't know why, because I think because it didn't fit really, it would just be a kind of a one-off for my collection. I hemmed and hawed about it, and I left, and I came back and I looked for it, and I'm like, dude, it's not where it was. And Holly was like, yeah, he sold it. And I'm like,
yeah. I remember that card because it was beautiful. I'm not to rub it in.
I was so mad at myself.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't crazy expensive. It was 100 and I don't know. It wasn't crazy expensive.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I wish I would have just bought it in the moment. And so I learned a lesson from that, is my point. Right. And sometimes you learn lessons the hard way. That was one of them. Let me ask you about inventory, because as you're going through the show, starting on Wednesday when it opens to the public, do you make a lot of deals even before it opens to the public, dealer to dealer deals, or other guys just walking around?
Yeah, I mean, at the National, usually that I always do the early setup on Tuesday, and you usually sell quite a few cards on that first day on Tuesday. I like to go out and walk around because I got some cards that I'm kind of looking for in my collection. If I get a chance to, I like to go out and walk around. But yeah, I mean, usually as soon as you're in there and you've got everything set up, there's people
eyeballs
walking
on it.
around ready to buy stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm one of those guys that, through some connections that I have, I can get in on Tuesday, and I'm there to buy on Tuesday. I'm there to see what kind of things are there already, and that's a cool advantage to know low people in high places sometimes.
Yeah.
Current company excluded, of course, but that's, I think, a great day to make some deals, and because it's very low stress time. People are still fresh; they're not tired yet.
Right.
Dealers are not just worn down by everybody trying to beat them over the head. And it's I find it to be the dealers are just more relaxed to me. They just seem, because they know they're kind of they're with their other dealer buddies, and it's just a different environment. But that rotating inventory is from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, early in the week.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously selling a lot of cards. How do you? And I've always wondered this: as stuff gets taken out of the showcase, you want to replace it, right? You want to keep the inventory. How do you rotate stuff around? Do you have like the backup inventory kind of thing?
Yep, I've got some backup inventory. On the big, obviously the big star cards, and some of those are kind of hard to replace. I'm bringing a whole bunch of nice T206s all graded to the National. So, some of that stuff's you just really can't replace. But some of the, a lot of the cards in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I have, multiples of. Right. So that helps, So
how do you decide what to put out at the beginning? Like when you go, all right, this is our initial setup, this is the way I want my showcase to look. It's never going to look as pretty as it does right now because things are going to get removed and sold. How do you decide that? What goes into that process?
I mean, I pretty much stick to what's worked for me in the past, Mike. I mean, I do all the graded cards, and then I've got some cards that are really nice that are raw that I would probably grade, but I haven't graded because I got a lot of folks that like to buy cards that aren't graded. So I've got those cards singly in holders. And then it goes right into, I'm my Gaudies and T206s and on into the early 50s. And, it works its way all up through the 70s and then the football and basketball. So, I don't change the way that I do it much from show to show because like we talked about earlier with me being able to find the cards, or if a customer comes, I know that, okay, this is, and Holly does too. It helps both of us because we kind of know where to go, and the customers that I've had in the past, they know where to look. And so, I don't really change my setup a whole lot. The one thing at the National is, like at a lot of the shows, I'll have all the books and everything on the tables. There's so many people at the tables at the National, not that I don't trust people, but
you don't trust people. That's okay.
But I mean, it happens. It happens. Sure. So I'll have more shelves behind the tables where if certain customers are looking for certain years, I'll have all the boxes and all the albums and stuff like that available to go through. And I'll probably try to set up. It's tough because I don't have my normal spread that I have at the other shows. Like when I'll be doing Indianapolis and I'll be doing a Nashville show for Jeff down there. But it's tough. To be able to have enough room at the National. I'm not sure I've not done the Atlantic City show. I don't know how they're going to have it set up. I know I'm fairly close to the entrance, but as far as my booth area, I know like in Chicago, we were really packed in there. I mean, it's nice. Some of my customers, I can have them come to the back, come around backside of the booth if they really work on something and have them sit down. It's always nice to be able to go through your lists and
at your own pace. And
right. Because it's just so crazy and people, want to be able to do their thing. Well, if there's 25 people or more at the tables, it's hard for somebody to really concentrate and go through their lists and go through cards. So that's the disadvantage, I think, sometimes with the way I have it set up is I feel like sometimes there's not quite enough room for them. But, I mean, we always make it work, but I want to make sure somebody's comfortable as they go through books and boxes and stuff and try to find what they want and have time to look at the condition and don't feel rushed. And there's not 3 people behind them going, "You're done with those. I want I want
Right.
to take a look. There's always, and it gets crazy like that. So,
Sure.
but
Do you have a lot? You mentioned, the wanting to have a lot of faith in people. Do you
mhm.
have a lot of stuff that gets five-finger discounted off your table?
I not that I know of, and um, when most of the time when people come to my table and buy cards out of the books, we'll give them a notepad and a pen and have them. This is probably people think I'm crazy, but we'll have them write down. You know, if something has a sticker price, they'll write it down in a notepad, or they'll say, okay, I got 20 cards in this series, and they were $1.50 a piece, and whatever, and then I'll total it up. And so I pretty much take a lot of people's word for what they have. I'll kind of glance through and see what we have, but I haven't that I know of. Everything, I knock on wood, has been pretty good. It helps to have 2 or 3 people. And
I made Norman go crazy because I knocked on wood. He thinks somebody's at the door.
But when you got other people at the tables that are your customers that you've sold to before, they're also watching. Other people are watching. So it's not just Holly and I. Everybody's kind of aware of what's going on. And I think if something was happening, that they would say something.
Yeah.
But
And I agree that, look, in our hobby, I'm sure there's stuff that and we hear stories about it all the time. Yeah. Dealers getting stuff stolen out of their cases. I don't know. Is it just me, or is the vintage world less of that? I don't know. I
don't know either. I always think and hope that everything is on the up and up. I try to trust everybody, and
yeah. I think you have to go into it.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
You can't go into it just suspecting everyone's trying to rip you off. That's a bad way to live anyway.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of shows recently over the last few months. You did Indy, I think, a couple months ago, right?
I did. It was great. Yeah.
Big show. Like, in the vintage world, what's moving right now? What do you think is going to be really popular at the National?
That even at that Indy show, we had a lot of set builders building their sets, and we sold a lot of raw stuff. I sold some graded stuff too, but the raw was just going like crazy. And I think most of them were just building sets. At the National, like I was going through, I'm going to bring some just different oddball, it's the oddball stuff and the out of the ordinary cards that people are looking for. So I'm going to take
a show like that, right? Because they know they can get the common stuff any other time they want, right?
Right.
And interesting point. I've heard just from talking to other collectors, other guys going to different shows around the country, that raw is becoming the new graded. Like, people are, it's almost like anti-grading again. It's like, all right, like Slabgate, like just the slab tsunami that's happened in the hobby has become like overdone so much that people are going, you know what, I'll take it raw. I like it raw.
That's what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm seeing, Mike. I get a lot of people that are just, they like the raw cards. They like to feel them. They like, and they don't want to worry about the slab or the grade. And I think too, I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but there are, and you see it in a lot of the groups, there are a lot of inconsistencies right now with the grading process. And, a graded PSA 7, 2 or 3 years ago doesn't seem to be the same PSA 7 as it is now. But it just depends on who the grader is. It could, there's a lot of inconsistencies right now. So I think a lot of people are saying, you know what, I've got an eye. I can go to a show and I can look at this 65 Topps Koufax and say, you know what, this card's beautiful, and I'm interested in buying it.
Yeah.
And that's great. I think anybody can grade a card. It's their eye. If they like it, they can buy it. But
and it's funny, people. I think the real. This is going to sound, I want this to sound the way I'm really intending it, which is most collectors, myself especially, when I look at a card, the numerical grade is not unimportant, but it's less important than the card itself. I'm buying the card, not the grade. And we say that a lot in the collecting world, like buy the card, not like if you like it, great. Don't buy it just because of the number that's on the flip. Buy it because it's well-centered. It's, all kinds of different, there's a whole lot of reasons you would buy a card. I buy a card slab because I like it being protected. I like it kind of being like, okay, this is the condition this card's going to be in, hopefully for the rest of its life, kind of thing.
Right.
And I like the registries for sure, but I'll take a PSA 4 with better eye appeal than maybe an assigned grade of a 6 of the same card if I like A, the price point's better, B, I just want a nice example of the card, right? So I think there's a lot to the collector having their, like you just said, they have eyes, and you need to decide, as each collector needs to decide for themselves, what types of cards they want to own.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's a great point. I think that with the inconsistencies and some of the, the talk that you hear about the grading is, just like what you're saying, people can realize and they can go, you know what, I can buy a raw card, or I can buy this card. Maybe it's not the numerical grade that I like, but look at the card itself is beautiful,
right.
and I'm going to buy it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it, and maybe that's changing. I think even myself, I think when I used to, I've got registry sets and stuff. I used to buy, that's I want to have all these in a certain grade. So if it was a 7, then I need to buy it, even though maybe a 6 looks nicer. And I think as you progress, and things have kind of, for me, it's more of an eye appeal. It's more, hey, this card catches my eye and I really like it, even if it maybe is a 5 or a 6 and not a 7. So
yeah, I mean, you could say I'll take a card that has beautiful color and registration, even with rounded corners, versus one that's sharp. You know what I mean? I have my own. It's funny. Some guys care about centering. Some guys care about. We all have our own little nuance of what we love. Yeah. For me, it's color and like the picture, and I don't like snow, so that matters more to me. To me, a vintage card should be a little worn corners. I've got some worn corners myself, kind of thing, and so I don't mind that as much. Some guys, I can't stand rounded or not rounded, but you know what I mean. Not, little fuzzy corners, I guess, is probably the right way to describe it.
Some people it's corners, some it's centering, some it's everybody's got their own eye and what they like, and that's what makes collecting sports cards great. That's why if I do these shows, I want to have. There may be an off-centered one. There may be a centered one. There may be one with a little more corner wear. I mean, I think collectors want to have a choice. They want to be able to look at multiple examples if they can and decide what they want to. I bought a 33 Gaudi Trish speaker the other day. A buddy of mine had just got back from PSA. As a PSA, I think it was 2.5. I think it was. And he sent me pictures of it. He had them, and I was like, wow. I've been looking for one, and I bought it. He's going to be bringing it to the National.
Nice.
And the card looked beautiful. I mean, it's 2.5, but the card looked great. So I was like, I got to have that card, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm totally the same way.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we get along so well. We think a lot alike. But I think that's kind of a vintage collector's mindset. It's not. And like, I've seen plenty. My Willie Mays rookie's a 2 and I love it.
Yeah.
I don't care that it's a 2. Right. And I hate when collectors down talk their car. Oh, it's only a 2.
Yeah.
Do you love it? Did you get it at a great price? Like, then awesome, man. You have a William or whatever card. We kind of got off. I got off the rails a little bit, but the what's moving. I'm really curious because I'm of the mindset that this National is going to be kind of a watershed moment for the hobby, because first of all, it's in Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing from one side, from the National side, record ticket sales, record attendance expected, yada, yada. And I'm hearing from the grassroots effort of the hobby, dude, I know plenty of big collectors that have said, no, I'm not going to Atlantic City. That would otherwise, if it was in Chicago, they'd be going, meaning, and they've all bought tickets and now they're trying to sell them. They're like, I've decided not to go because of the economic, environment that we're in. There's a lot of people going, maybe I'll pass this year. So I don't think it's going to be, based on that information, as big as they think it's going to be, which is, either way I'm going. So it doesn't really, in fact, that's just less people I'm elbowing to get out of the way of me trying to buy a card, which is fine. But I think it's this watershed moment because we are at this crossroads of the hobby. Who's going to stick around that came in after the pandemic? Who's going to, we're 2 years removed from that. It's time to see all these things we threw up against the wall. What's going to stick?
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a lot of dealers there newer dealers, not guys like you, but might be getting a little bit desperate. Like, whoa, I've had this inventory for a while now. It's all come down, and vintage hasn't cratered like ultra modern for sure, but it's certainly come down from the peak, right? No question. And I think there's going to be some opportunities as a buyer that I haven't seen in a couple of years to pick up some stuff that maybe I was priced out of
Mm-hmm.
through the pandemic period. Do you agree, disagree?
Well, if you think about where the show's at, I mean, there's not been a national out there for I don't know how many years it's been,
16.
right?
It was 16 was the last one.
So, there's a lot of collectors out there. I've not done a show out there, so I don't know. So I don't know. I mean, I did that indie show, and the last few shows that I've done have been just crazy, rocking. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are saying they're not going to go, but how many collectors are up in that area, up in the Northeast that are going to be there? I mean, I think there's going to be a lot.
So, and that's cool. I mean,
but I don't know. I'm speculating there, but just being at some of the last shows that I've done, and I know, the economy and there's things, but I was thinking about this the other day. The economy is one thing, but a lot of people buy cards and they collect because they enjoy it too. So, I mean, I know they're spending money, and probably a lot of people have, they've got a budget and they've got some money budgeted for the national, but they're not only going, I mean, they're going to a lot of times they go to shows just because they enjoy it. They love going through cards. They love to buy cards. So that's the advantage that I think we have in the sports cards market is, a lot of people just enjoy it. They love it. It's a hobby. So we can get caught up in the money and, the price of this cards went down or went up, blah, blah, blah. But there's so many collectors like me. And I know I do the shows too, but a collector that if there's certain cards that I really want to get, I enjoy it. If I've got the money put aside, I'm going to buy it. So it's a little different approach, I think, than, we looked at the stock. I didn't look at the stock market today, but oh man, it's down again, or whatever stock I've got is down. But it makes you feel good. You go to, I go to shows. There's this little show in Mattoon and Terre Haute, Indiana that I'll go to right before the national. And I go through cards and pick up stuff that I want because I enjoy it. For me, it's a fine balance of doing some shows and then getting an opportunity to go to shows to buy some cards and work on my collection. So it's fun.
Yeah, I try to tell and advise other collectors, like, you should be spending money on your hobby that you don't need to pay your bills or to fill up your gas tank or buy groceries, all that kind of stuff. This should be fun. And if you're stressing about the money part of it, that takes a lot of the fun out of it. So try to spend what's reasonable. And that may be different this year than last year or the year before. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't have a blast. It doesn't mean you can't pick up some great stuff for your collection. Just hobby within your means, you know? Being a financial advisor, right? I just think that way all the time. I'm always like, don't overdo it, and people look at my collection and probably think I overdo it, but all my bills get paid. My house is paid, I'm not spending money I have to have for other things. This is discretionary income. This is extra, so to speak, that my wife and I have worked through, and this is what I can do. But I'm excited about what I might be able to pick up at this show, more so than even in years past. I have the whole, God, I wish I could go back to, 2014 in Cleveland when I was there. My first kind of modern national. I'd gone in 1990 when I was, 17 years old, but I wasn't a vintage guy then. But my first real show in national in 2014, I wish I could go back and take the budget I have now to that show. I would be a happy guy, but at the same time, I can't go back in time. I don't have a DeLorean that'll go 88 miles an hour and take me back. So, what do you think's different about the national, Craig, than Indy or Dallas or other shows that you go to? What's special about it?
I think it's just the buzz, the preparation, the early setup and the sneak peek, and they really get the hype, going for the show, and it's just the hunt. I mean, it's almost like you could find any card that you're looking for at the National. And I think that's exciting. And also getting to see things at the National, get to see cards that you probably will never get to see at any other show. So there's a lot, not that, the Dallas show, the Indy show, these shows are, and the Nashville show that Jeff has is, is a great show too. But the National, there's just so much hype. I mean, what are we going to get to see, or what are we going to maybe get the opportunity to buy? And the last National Chicago, I had some really great stuff coming to my tables that I had an opportunity to buy some collections. So, and that was a lot of fun. But I think it's just the hype and what you could get to see at the National, because about everything's going to be there probably for a collector to be able to, if they can't afford it to buy it, they at least might get to see it, So I think that's exciting too. And I know there's a lot of autograph folks that like to get autographs, and I'm an autograph collector like you are.
Yeah.
So I saw the lineup. It looks like there's going to be a lot of great athletes there signing. So that'll be fun too. Going out to eat with friends, and I know you got a bunch of buddies you're going with. So
yeah,
it's just a big deal. It's just a lot of fun.
Part of me thinks, because of the growth of the other regional large shows that are happening, and it seems like they're just getting bigger and bigger, which is great for the hobby overall. But it makes me concerned that the National might lose some of its luster if the idea is, well, I don't need to go to Atlantic City. I can go to Dallas next month, or I can go to Indy in 2 months. And there's just pretty close to as many in Dallas, especially as many vendors there, and maybe not as many actual tables or as much table space, but the number of dealers at the Dallas show rivals the National in terms of people there. Yeah. And so I worry about that. Nobody loves the National more than I do, really. I find it to be my favorite thing to put on the calendar at the beginning of every year. Like, okay, who I'm going to see, like you said, who I'm going to go to dinner with, who I'm staying with, who I get to hang with, the relationships, those are vital. Right. But that's also happening at others. Like I have friends that, 2 or 3 friends, 4 friends that fly in for the Dallas show every time, and they stay at my house, and we, so it's almost like I can replicate that experience that used to be so unique about the National. Mm-hmm. I may have to spread it out over a few Dallas shows or whatever, but I feel like it's getting the gap is closing between the uniqueness of the National and other big regional shows that are becoming more and more popular. So
I think so. I agree with you there. I mean, you think about, the Dallas show, the Nashville show, the Indy show. I know there's some others out in the Northeast. There's some really big shows.
Chantilly,
Chantilly's a big one.
Yeah.
But we're finding that, those are just exciting, and they're getting big too. There's a lot of hype. So, I agree with what you're saying. I don't know where the next, that right now they're kind of looking at where we're going to have the National the next 3 rounds. They sent a lot of us the voting sheet to where we can kind of vote on where we want to have hope to have the National the next 3 years. I think location has got something to do with it a little bit. I do think that Chicago is a great, it's kind of centralized there, is a great location. And I know Cleveland it sounds like I've not set up there, but it sounds like it's pretty good setup to get everybody in there and to be able to set up and get everything into the location. So, that's probably got something to do with it. But these regional shows like Dallas and Indy and Nashville and some of these really are exciting. I mean, and there's a lot of people going to those shows.
Yeah,
shows are hopping right now. I mean, they really are.
Well, I think to me, I think the hobby is gravitating a lot towards shows because it's easy.
Yes.
It's usually cash deals. There's not tax tip. You can just, it's cleaner. You don't have to wait for a card to be shipped to you, or even now go through eBay certification and then finally get to you and hope it doesn't get screwed up. You get to look at it. There's a lot of value to that. And the hunt, like you said, is so fun.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hunt with a mouse.
Yeah.
It's another thing to hunt with these.
Right. And you get the card from eBay and you get it at home and you're like, oh, it's got a wrinkle, or no, this is not, it's not what you expect. Well, you can come to the shows and you can have the card in your hand and look at it and see if it's really what you want or not. So I think that's the big advantage of the card shows.
Yeah. And there's a financial aspect to it too. I don't want to dismiss that as not being important. I can do a deal, even if it's more expensive or less expensive on eBay. Well, then I hear it from both sides. A dealer will say, well, you don't have to pay tax. And I'm like, well, you don't have to pay eBay fees either.
Right.
So the reality is we both win. So let's make this work. Like if we sell it here, we're both better off. So
yes,
let's try to find a way to make that happen. And all right, so guys, we're back. I'm so sorry. I just had some technical issues here. So I'm back with Craig, and but neither one of us, since my Wi-Fi went out, neither one of us can remember exactly what we're talking about. So you probably know, and you're like, I wish they would finish that thought, but I can't go back and stop this and go listen to it and know where we were. So I apologize for that. But
we were kind of talking about the regional shows, I think, Mike.
Yeah, and how they were growing and all that, and losing the luster. But when you filled out your little, like you got your little survey or whatever, I think people need to know the national locations are decided by the dealers, not necessarily the national itself. I guess I should say they really value the input of the dealers themselves, right?
Right.
And so, not that you have the only say as the dealers, but you are contributing to that decision process.
Yeah, we're contributing. Yeah.
Did they give you any other like non-normal places?
No, I mean, and I don't know exactly how it all works, Mike. I mean, everything, I think the options are like Chicago, the next 3 shows, Chicago, Cleveland, Chicago, and maybe Chicago and Atlantic City was in there somewhere. I can't remember. But it was for the next 3 years. So
interesting.
It's good to get everybody's input on it. I think that's great. But I'm not sure how the whole process works as far as how they decide. I know there's kind of a group or a board for the national that kind of takes a look at everything and gets all the votes. So
we had mentioned Cleveland before I lost my internet, and you said you'd never been there. I've been to 2 nationals there. In terms of floor space, and I've never been to Atlantic City either, so this will be both of our first times to a national in Atlantic City. The Cleveland show is amazing in terms of the actual venue, the IX Center. Everything else about Cleveland is pretty crap because all the hotels, none of them are like right there. They're all a shuttle away or an Uber away, or you got to drive there.
Yeah.
So that's mildly inconvenient. But I will say that there's wide aisle. I mean, it's great for the show itself. The show floor is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's my only. I say it's a big complaint though, because if it's all relational about going to the show, and you can't really do that conveniently once the show ends, it kind of like, But I'll still go if it's
right.
That's fine. Because we were talking about, the differences between the national and other shows and stuff like that. So is your approach, now I want to get into some more nitty gritty stuff that some people may not care about, but I find it fascinating. You go to this show, you've got a budget, you're outlaying so much money to come. You're having to bring all this inventory. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, oh man, I have a sales goal of this every day, or I need to do this to meet my projection of the amount of money I need to make? Does that ever cross your mind? How do you approach it that way financially?
Not really. I mean, I think the goal for us is just, I hope to see a lot of people, we got all the business cards, we put the business cards out. And we hope that we're constantly putting out business cards because people are grabbing the cards and they're getting the idea where the booth number's at. But I think it's more or less just the foot traffic and how busy we are. And usually Holly and I, by the end of the day, are just, wore out. So, I mean, I want to set expectations on, I hope that I do this amount in sales a day, or I hope tomorrow. I mean, I think that every dealer in their mind has got, man, I hope I can get this amount, because how much you've got wrapped up in, the show and your hotel and food and stuff like that. But I try not to get too much into that because I want to just kind of enjoy it and know that I worked hard. And usually the collectors are there. So, I mean, I try not to get too wrapped up in that. Because it's a card show, and I'm getting set up at a card show, and I enjoy it, and it's fun, and I just try to try to keep the fun side of it and stay away from the try not to look too hard at the business side of it, I guess.
It's kind of a field of dreams mentality. It's like if I build the right experience, they will come, right? Like,
yeah, that's what I hope, right?
Yeah, and the money will take care of itself, right?
Yeah.
If you do it right, and I think you do.
Thank you.
So as we close up here, I want to tell you, how much I appreciate you doing this, and I think it's great that you're willing to share your experience as a dealer. When anybody going to the National, I have an idea for you, Craig. So here's your card, right? This is Craig's business card. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's not focusing perfectly, but you can hit pause. And what's your booth number at the National?
What is it on there? Is it 241?
Well, you have it scratched out here. It's not even.
Oh, do I?
This is an old card. I've had it for a long
old
time.
Card. I think it's 241. I should have had that ready, but I don't have.
Not like you knew we were talking about the National or anything. So.
But you can look. But on the National, they have a website there, and it's got all the dealers. It's got their booth number, and I think like when you come in the main entrance and you come in, you could go maybe 2 or 3 aisles and then take a ride, and I'm right in that area, so I'm not too far away from the main entrance there. But I think I'm booth 241, but it's under How Big Vintage Sports Cards there. So,
well, here's my idea for you, Craig, and I want you guys to pipe in on this down below in the comments. My thought to Craig was he loves handing out his business cards, and people, it's got his booth number, which is great. So if you're there, and this is an advice to anybody at any show, not just the National, but it's overwhelming. You're going to forget where things were and where, I saw this card, but I can't remember. Well, Craig card at his table, he's got his booth number on it. So that's problem number 1 solved. You know what booth to go to. Number 2 is, what card were you looking at? What was the price? So Craig, I have on the back of your card, I think you should, keep your awesome, experience and all that kind of, I think that's important, but make it where it's almost like a little mini notepad right there, where it lines and it's white, and someone can write down on the back of your card. And I promise you, more collectors will keep your card if it's instead of just being a random card. It's, I'm looking for a blah 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 XYZ card, and they know where to go and where they found it. I think that's a cool idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because a lot of people that'll grab a business card, they're trying to write somewhere, or some people have a notebook or whatever. They're trying to write down what I have or what, and then the location. They're looking around to see. Okay,
yeah,
it's such a big venue, where I'm located. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
If you give them an easy way to do that, and it's branding yourself, it's perfect, right?
Right.
I may have, that dog might hunt right there.
I think it's great. I wish I had. I bet I've got a card. Let me look here real quick.
I need you guys down below, as you're hearing this, if you think that's a good idea for Craig, put a comment down below, because Craig will be reading the comments after this comes out.
I was right. 241.
Okay, 241. So you already got your cards for the National already?
Yep, my business cards. I do.
So it's too late for this show, I guess, to change it. But I don't know.
I'll have notepads, so I can. Yeah, they can. I have all these little notepads and pens, so people can. They use them to write down, like we was talking about before, but they can write down whatever information. But I may do that next time. I think it's a great idea
for future reference. But hey, if you're at the National, go see Craig and Holly. They're great. They'll treat you right. If you go and say that you heard about them from Golden Age of Cardboard, Craig's going to give you 50% off. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. That's not true. That's totally not true. Is there any benefit for anybody listening to this podcast and coming to your table?
Any benefit?
Yeah, we didn't talk about this at all before. Like, do they get they could?
Well, I'm sure we could come up with something.
I bet he'll take care of you. If you say, "Hey, I heard you,"
if they mention you, I'm sure I can work something out for them.
Yeah,
sure. If they buy cards, I'm sure I'll give them a little break or something on their deal.
Well, you got to be careful, because they're going to be coming up. Man, Mike's my best friend, and I probably never met him. So
I do try to work with everybody the best I can.
I know you do.
I think that's one of the most important things is everybody's got a budget and everybody's trying to find a fair price on a card, and that's what we strive to do, to make sure everybody feels good about the card and about the price. So that's important. Very important.
It is, and you guys do a great job. I've never left there feeling like. I felt always leaving there going, hey, I did well there. You know,
Yeah,
not.
good.
I always feel good leaving your table.
Great.
So
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
that is awesome. Well, thanks, Craig, again for being here. I'll see you in a
Great.
few short weeks at the National. I'm sure we might even talk to each other a few times between
Oh,
now
yeah.
and then. But I really appreciate you. And hey, if you're going to the show, go check them out. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon, and keep collecting.